My name is Kaitlin Drisko. I'm the Executive Director of the Santa Monica Conservancy. Thank you for joining us today. This program is called Site Specific, and we hope to focus on the how-to of historic preservation, the design, the engineering, the materials conservation, and the details that go into preserving and maintaining our historic buildings. The program today is going to be discussing the Annenberg Community Beach House. As a historic preservation architect myself, I've been associated with so many people who are passionate and smart and focused on details that sometimes seem too technical. They seem minor, but they often emerge as some of the central or key issues to preserving place. So I wanted to introduce you to some of those people that are involved in their skills and why they're interested in preservation. So let me introduce some extraordinary people to you today. We have Nan Friedman, the manager for the Annenberg Community Beach House. And we have John Lesak, the principal at Page Turnbull, who's a historic preservation architect. So I thought I'd start today with just a brief overview with some photos of the Annenberg Community Beach House itself and set up our conversation for today. So the oceanfront property along Pacific Coast Highway was developed in the 1920s by actress Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst. The Davies estate included the main building, which was 100+ rooms, an ornate marble swimming pool, a guest house. The property is the vision of Julie Morgan and known as a hotspot for entertainment luminaries like Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, Clark Gable. Has this beautiful marble swimming pool. In the distance here, you're seeing the guest house that was built as part of the property and the guest house today. The Annenberg has many other things to attract and entertain, and there's the cultural programming. Tours are run out of the Annenberg Beach House weekly. We have, at the Annenberg Beach House, we have community events, and of course, the beach activities and sports. And most importantly, the Annenberg Beach House is a community asset. It's open to all. So I thought I'd start today by letting Nan tell a little bit about how she became involved in the beach house and a little more about what goes on there.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Happy to be here with both of you. We were talking earlier, and the beach house is actually turning 15 as the Annenberg Community Beach House. The site opened in April 25th. 2009, and we're heading into our 15th anniversary next month. It is a site that's gone from a private site to a public site. It started out as Marion's estate, her beach house estate, and then it became a hotel, and then it became a private club, and then it became the Annenberg Community Beach House. So it's had a really nice trajectory in that sense, especially since it's on this gorgeous 5-acre piece of land that's right on the ocean and part of Santa Monica. So the city, wanted to redevelop the property as it had been sort of defunct. They were operating it. They're an operator for the state of California. And they went through a lengthy public process, and then did not have the funds to bring that to life. And the Annenberg Foundation heard about this possibility and stepped in to partner with the city. This is a very successful public-private partnership. It turned out that Wallace Annenberg had actually been, her family had been a member of the club when this site was a private club, the Sand and Sea Club. She had very fond memories of this place, and as part of the foundation, I think she had a very strong personal vision for creating a public place where everyone could come. So that was and it meshed very beautifully with what the city of Santa Monica wanted to do. So the Annenberg Community Beach House came into being, and I was lucky enough to have the bizarre range of skills and experience that brought me into this position. And it's been an incredible journey to have opened it, to have brought this vision to life, to put a paper plan and the ideas of so many people up on its feet. And I think that it's really been a journey. And part of that journey is, for me, has been learning how to steward a site that has historic assets and is a contemporary open site to the public. And that's kind of how John and Page and Turnbull came into partnership with the city and the beach house to address the historic assets. And that's also a big role that the Conservancy plays, because the Santa Monica Conservancy is our vendor, in a sense, to do our interpretive programs. I will say one more thing, and then I'll let you continue on. So this public-private partnership that the foundation has created with the city, the mandates were that this place be an open space, that it have cultural programming, interpretive services, recreational programming, and that it have event services. So it's a multi-use site. People come here, do things on their own. People participate in cultural activities, community events, recreation programs, our interpretive programs, which the Conservancy has for us, and private events that it's rented for. Birthday parties, celebrations of life, filming, many, many things. Yep.
That's a great segue then to introduce John's puzzle that he's been working on for this amazing site. I'll show a few photos just so everybody kind of can see the variety of materials, architectural styles, landscaping, the wood structure, the details and ornamentation in wood, the merger of the new concrete walls with the historic and the historic detailing around the building, the interpretive elements, such as this is what's called the bulkhead, and it's a reconstruction, but it's an original component, as you saw in some of the historic photographs, and the original stairs coming down to this courtyard that has this interpretive inset concrete that was where there was a second pool at one point. And I'm just fascinated by the number of details, the number of different materials, new wood, old wood, and in particular here at the pool, merging what was a private marble pool and converting it into a public asset is just an extraordinary set of requirements, tools, architectural preservation issues. So I think it's just an extraordinary set of elements that's quite a puzzle. So John, you've taken this on. Tell us a little bit about that.
So thank you for having me. I think this project embodies a lot of the ethos and theory that I like to believe influences what I do as a historic architect or historic preservation architect. It has mostly to do with maintenance and how to maintain a very active historic site. In 2017, the city of Santa Monica issued a request for proposal to develop a really kind of forward-thinking maintenance plan for the historic portions of the sites, and that's the guest house, the northern guest house, and the pool. And we responded to that RFP. We were talking beforehand, and this is actually the fifth Julia Morgan designed pool that I've worked on in my career. I think I'm the only one to be able to claim that. So I worked on at UC, University of California, Berkeley. The Hearst Gymnasium has 3 pools. So I worked on those early in my career. So this is my 30th year of doing this. Hard to believe. But and then our firm worked at Hearst Castle and relining the marble at the Neptune pool, which is the outside pool with the kind of classical motifs, very just beautiful. And kind of whenever you get that opportunity, you want to take it. So we were really pleased to be awarded the project, and it's been a really lovely relationship. And it's interesting because it's different. It's, you know, taking that aspect of taking a building from private use all the way to public use really makes you think. So I'm a big believer that historic preservation is a sustainable act. And through that act, we have to think about the triple bottom line. So people who have been kind of involved with sustainability for a while know that you want to look at the people, the environment, which is the historic site, and then economy. You have to be able to kind of afford to take care of these places. So when we develop plans like this, we are trying to think not only, you know, how do we follow the best practices in working on a historic site, but also how do we make sure we engage all these different people? Because there actually are lots of different solutions to these things, and making sure that they're manageable and they can go into effect is really important. And you know, this is a great site. It has a really lovely contemporary piece to it, designed by Frederick Fisher. And you know, I'm a big believer in you got to use it or you're going to lose it. And this site is very well used and very well loved. And I think just from that aspect, it'll be around for a long time. But it is, you know, it's a tough site. Being on the coast is hard. There's wind and water and salts and sun, and that can be hard on a wood frame building like this one.
It's hard on everything here. Every surface is hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Well, John has a nice presentation to kind of walk us through the elements of the maintenance plan. Before John gets started on that, I wanted to let our attendees know that down at the bottom of your Zoom screen is a Q&A bubble. And if you click on that, you're welcome to enter some questions in. And at the end, if you send any in, I'll be sure to read them out for John and Nan, and we can see if we can answer the issues that are of interest to you. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen, John, and you can walk us through the development of the preservation plan.
So we always like to start. We like to start our process with kind of, I call it what makes something historic. So understanding why a place is historically significant. And you know, the site had been designated in 1980, which is fairly early for historic designation. And it's significant for a lot of different reasons. It's the kind of last remaining pieces of the Marion Davis estate, kind of a critical piece of the cultural, social, and even architectural evolution of Santa Monica, but also California in the 1920s. I've seen this referred to as the Gold Coast of the area. And, you know, there's historic people involved. So Marion Davis was a renowned actress. Her connection to William Randolph Hearst exists, who was a major influence through his media company and as well. And then it's a representative work of a master architect, Julia Morgan, and it is kind of Women's History Month. And Julia Morgan was the first woman to attend the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, and really was a prolific architect, really early in the 20th century, and really just made an amazing contribution. So it's great.
And the first licensed female architect in California.
That's right. That's right. So the maintenance planning, like I said, the scope of work was very thoughtful. So there were parts to it. So one of the things that we had to do to start was to create an inventory of the historic components of the site, and then create a maintenance checklist. And the intent was that this checklist would be used by us. Our contract was a 5-year contract, and it got renewed every year after. And we'd come back and look at the site. And then after we were done, somebody else could pick up the checklist and be able to go back and look at older versions and see how the site was aging, how things were performing, and that's important. So the cover page of the checklist is on the right there. And then after we kind of got that thought through and worked with Nan and the city team to make sure we covered the right things, we went through and did a conditions assessment as a baseline for 2017. And then we created a report that kind of put all these things together. So we'll look at some of the key conditions. So the site gets scoured by wind and sun, and it's really hard on the paint. And kind of modern day paints do not last anywhere near as long as kind of older lead-based or oil-based paints. So paint was an issue, and honestly, we've repainted the building once, but it remains an issue at the site. Windows had some wear and tear. They're actually not in terrible condition. They just need regular maintenance, and the shutters in particular are showing, we started this 7 years ago. It's hard to believe, but the shutters really have worn quite a bit over time. And then there's also these great little shutter lugs that are made out of iron, and salty water or salty ocean breezes is really tough on ferrous or iron materials. Steel and iron causes them to rust really quickly, so they have to be made. Next is so there's a beautiful wood floor inside the guest house, but it is showing a lot of signs of wear and tear, and a little bit of insect infestation and separation due to movement, and was one of the key issues that we saw. So we have flagged that. We'll talk about that again a little bit later. And then there's some beautiful interior tile work. And candidly, the tile's in really good shape, but it had a number of cracks, mostly that seemed to open a little bit more every earthquake. So we wanted to make sure we documented those and kept an eye on them over time. And the tile's holding up really well. And then the pool itself. So the marble that's at the pool is from Vermont, and it is a very, what they would call lime-rich marble. It has a lot of lime in it, and it's prone to the calcite, and the lime is prone to washing out, and the marble tends to get weaker over time. And there's a lot of veins which have different minerals in them, so the marble cracks and erodes, and is a challenge. It's been a challenge in all the pools I've looked at. And we broke this into pieces. So there's the pool deck, and that's some of the original marble in the Greek key motif. The pool gutter, and the challenge with the gutter is it's if something's dry all the time, it tends to do pretty well. If something's wet all the time, it tends to do pretty well. It's the stuff that goes wet and dry, like the deck, and like the gutter, that experiences ages and deteriorates more rapidly. And then there's a beautiful mosaic border at the bottom of the pool that you see there. I'll talk about that some more in a sec. But we're gonna segue into the maintenance plan. So we've done this inventory. We've identified all these components, and we're a big believer in kind of this is a living document. It's a planning document, and plans change. So this lives in a spreadsheet and can be updated and sorted. But some of the key conditions are, calling out, is it interior, exterior, what kind of pieces of the site does it belong to? What's the element? And then general condition. So we use a pretty simple good, fair, poor, just to get things organized. And then we assign priorities. So this particular iteration of the spreadsheet is sorted by cost. But we give priority, and we'll show one sorted by priority. But we do kind of stuff that needs to be taken care of immediately, stuff that needs to be taken care of really in the next few years, which is near term, and then something they have to watch long term, like a roof replacement is more of a long term thing. And then we spell out treatment cycles and talk about it in terms of things that you need to do right away, things that are maintenance, which are really cyclic, like you need to do once or twice a year, every year. And then things that are a capital project, which is a big repair project that will only happen, every 10 years or so. So these are things that are immediate, which are more things that are hazardous or things that are increasing the rate of deterioration. That's usually what we call immediate. And then this is sort of by group elements. So the exterior, you can break things down in exterior and interior. But one of the key components is it's a public site and they have fiscal budgeting cycles that go on, and understanding what are the big expenses and when are they going to hit. So Nan can go out and ask the city for money, and the people who do the city budget planning, they can set that money aside. And through this process, several what I would call capital or large repair projects came to fruition. The first one, which we did in 2020, was we did a phased repair project, and we did the pool deck and tile. We painted the house, and we're currently working on the wood floor and the bulkheads, and planning for a phase 2 for the pool deck and tile.
So we have examples we'll show of both the pool restoration and the wood flooring and some of the other things you're working on. But before we show those, talk a little bit about how you maybe work together on these. It must be extraordinary you have a living place that's open every day. So maybe talk a little bit about how you plan these and how you work together on them.
Well, I will say that I felt an incredible responsibility to take care of the historic assets. And because this was a new project, the Annenberg Community Beach House didn't exist before 2009, that it's really been a journey to learn how to take care of it, and also to bring the city on board with us. I mean, we were trying to get people in the door and getting them to pay for the pool and having events and getting our operations up and running. So it's been a journey to learn how to take care of the site and these very special historic assets, and to start including the city in that process. Our facilities team, our architectural services team. And it's been happening, our capital, our CIP budget folks. So it's definitely been a process. And this was the first step, was to create the maintenance plan and the condition and assessment. And it's so funny because when you had it up there, I saw a line item that was what we have just done, which, well, part of the process we went through, which was like explore the squishy floors in the guest house. In the next 6 to 12 months. Well, we finally got to it. But anyway, so I think it's been a journey, and I think it's just, I mean, the the amount of things, the amount of surfaces, and the amount of money that each of these things require is you know, it's intimidating for sure. So, you know, it's been a process of sort of being overwhelmed and then, you know, just slowly focusing on what the most important things are to do, what, you know, what is doable, how to plan for these large projects. This is we're in the we've done minor things and we've done large things. So the pool, obviously, the phase one of that project was enormous, and we actually finished that in the pandemic. And then we're on to the second large capital project, which is replacing the floor in the guest house in the first floor only. Right. And I will say that I do want to mention that the historic historic structure report, when the site was opened, said that this floor is it's at the end of its life right now. It can't be treated anymore. It can't be sanded anymore. It's currently at its end of life. So we just kind of like kept going till the squishiness it was a little bit too much to, you know, we reached a tipping point, and we finally reached a moment where we had some capacity, because it takes a lot of capacity to take care of these projects. Yeah. And so working together has been great. Yeah. It's just been fantastic. And, you know, it's great to have such incredible expertise from John and Page and Turnbull. And also, you know, when you stepped into the Conservancy role, Kaitlin, I think your expertise was also very valuable in pulling the Conservancy point of view in. So it's been a wonderful journey, and it includes many more. It's like, it's so interesting to get inside your head, John, and to learn what that process is of examining a site and going through the steps to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you know, cross education is super important in these. So, you know, I've worked on hundreds of historic buildings, and I've worked on I've worked with cities, but every city's different, every site's different, every stakeholder has different concerns, and you need to kind of listen and figure those things out. And then understand what the touch points are, but also be constantly kind of saying, hey, there's processes to this and processes to that. And how do we weave all these layers of complexity together? And that's always, to me, that's always the trick, is how do we, you know, develop that prioritization? Because we see so many times at historic sites, people focusing on the wrong thing first. Like, people want to restore an interior with wallpaper, but the roof's leaking. And it's like, they'll spend the money on the wallpaper, but they won't fix the roof. And that's the wrong, like, you have to kind of get those priorities in line. And that really does involve kind of all these different aspects and creating matrices. I call them sieves, where you kind of let things fall through the sieve. And these are the things that are really critically important to get done now. And that, you know, because you guys are managing the site, we have to understand when we can actually do the work, because it's, you know, it's a fantastic public amenity, and you don't want to close it to people at the wrong time of year. And that, you know, having, you have time windows, particularly for the pool, and it's like, how do we hit the right time windows? And you have to plan in advance for that. So all that back and forth and understanding is critically important. And, you know, we spent a lot of time looking for marble, like finding replacement marble, right? Yeah.
Replacement what?
The marble.
Oh, the marble, yes,
right?
yes.
Figuring out where to get the replacement marble, because lots of marbles look like the white marble with the veins, but they don't perform the same as the marble that's there. And you don't want to have, you want to have like cheap performing stone going into a site that gets used that much. So it was important.
Well, that's a great segue to the set of photos you've shared about the rehabilitation of the pool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share screen and let you walk us through those, because I'm looking at this presentation and talking with you leading up to this. I'm just in awe of all the specialists and the contractors and the people who worked to do this pool rehabilitation. So I'll share screen and you can walk us through. My understanding is this is kind of what the site looked like in 2009 when
That's
when
correct.
Fred Fisher was getting started.
Right. So the pool had been preserved in place after the mansion had been demolished, which I think was in the 50s, but it had been covered for decades and nobody had really seen it. So this was the uncovering of the marble deck and the condition it was in when they did the project in 2009. And the ceramic were having issues, but the contractor actually did the work for us, was the same contractor that did the work back then, or at least the same people, maybe not the same business entity.
Yeah.
But KC Restoration did the work for us a few years ago. And this is kind of, we were classifying, we needed to classify the deterioration of the stone. So there's kind of this crumbling effect. There's just cracking. They're chipping of corners. And this was common to the green stone. The green and white stone weathered slightly different or deteriorated slightly differently. But yeah, the white stone does what they call sugaring. That's where I was talking about the lime washing out. It's kind of, you have to think of it like a sugar cube. It gets to a point where it's got a consistency of a sugar cube and you can kind of crush it in your fingers after a long period of time. So we really, because we knew that we had to do some phasing, or knew pretty early we had to do some phasing, like really understanding which stones were hard to repair and continue in service. And then here's the gutter.
We also had to factor in the safety of the pool. We wanted that first rehabilitation to cover all the aspects that might have been safety hazards.
Right. You don't want it too slippery, and you don't want people tripping over stone that had cracked and all those
exactly
things. And this just shows the deterioration of the pool, and it deteriorates a little bit differently just because of the volume of water that's always passing over the stone. Again, just some examples of cracking. And then, it's always great when you work with a city like Santa Monica, because they have divers who work for the city. So we were able to get divers to come out, and we worked collaboratively with them to get photographs and document the conditions of the mosaic and little tesserae tiles at the bottom of the pool. There's some shots that the divers took. You can see that the glaze tiles had issues where the glaze was failing, and to be candid, that some of that has been resolved, but not all of that has been resolved. So we're working on understanding why the paint coatings that we're using are still having performance issues. But there were cracks and kind of tiles that started to be shattered. So really looking at how to address all these different issues. And the pink and green, what they call tessellated, which is just checkerboard tiles, were really deteriorating, eroding away. And at the end, we ended up replacing these, and we'll show that in a sec. So these are the kind of what we proposed to do and actually ended up doing. So what we call in-kind replacements, of finding stone that has the same visual and mechanical qualities of the existing stone. Because we knew we were phasing it, we wanted to purchase enough of that so we wouldn't have to go through that hunt again. We ended up getting specialty tiles made to replace the 1x1 mosaic tile. And then we repaired the hand-painted fish tiles at the bottom, and then just cleaned everything and tightened up the joints. And then they do an annual sealing of the stone really to keep the surface from wearing away. And here's the replacement stone that we found. And again, the stone needs to be abraded so that it's not too slick, so that you can see in both of those pieces the kind of polished and then the abraded stone, and then with a sealer on it too. And then we found new tiles for the bottom, which was great. And that's a mock-up of a repaired mosaic tile too. And this is Casey Restoration doing their work. We only replaced pretty heavily damaged stone pieces, so you can see kind of the missing tooth effect, and kind of what we found when everything was prepared as far as the glazed tiles at the bottom. I think there's another slide of in action. And then this is kind of the end game. So all the pink and green checkerboard tiles were replaced, and the mosaic tiles were repaired. And the 7'3" is a replacement of the existing original lettering. And it gives you an idea of kind of what, the mix of different tiles. You can see a little bit of the difference, but I don't think you could tell now which ones were replaced.
I actually have some original tiles under my desk.
There you go.
And is that you, Nan, in the bottom of the pool?
Yeah, that's me. And then that's also Heath Hamilton, who's the City of Santa Monica Beach Recreation Supervisor. I think we're wearing masks there because it's the pandemic. And Heath really runs the pool and was very instrumental in supporting this project. And he's really the operational pool lead. He knows everything about this pool. He actually talks to he has a relationship with the folks up at Hearst Castle, because they converse about different things, relative to caring for the pool. Yeah.
So I think this also, that slide shows one of the real challenges of this, and that was keeping the pool drained and dry, because the off season is the winter, and it's our rainy season, but the coatings and the repairs need the tiles to be fairly dry, so you can get kind of a uniform installation. So that was one of the tricks of the project.
Oh, wow.
But not only that, we figured out, or maybe remembered, that there's always a constant level there's a constant bit of groundwater that comes up. So that factors into our operation of the pool. Right. We just had to take some of the water out so that we could reach the tiles that, for part of this phase 2 project to, and so the groundwater is always an issue.
Yep.
Yeah, so that project was an award-winning. You guys got a California Preservation Foundation Award in 2021 for all of that great work. And I do understand now there is going to be another phase on that. Yeah.
Well, we got a Santa Monica Conservancy.
That's right.
Yes, we did. Stewardship.
Well, that is truly stewardship. So there's, but you weren't able to complete everything you wanted in that phase. You had a few things that need to be done still.
That's correct. There's always budgeting constraints. So the team as a whole recognized that we weren't going to be able to complete the fully desired scope of work within the budget. So we created tiers of tile, the marble condition, and we purchased the stone to replace the other tiles, and they do wear over time. So this is already, getting 4 years old. So yeah, the
intent. All the other part of this, if my memory matches yours, that when we went to do this project, we had done like a first review and a scope. Right. But then when we actually started the work, when that work started, there was more work. You know what I'm saying? The project became bigger.
Right.
bigger, which
Yeah,
is
we did
why I
a,
think we had to do this phase two, because we didn't have the time. We didn't know if we had the materials. We needed to do the first, what we had originally planned on doing, make it safe so that we could operate it, and then revisit. And so now we're revisiting.
that's
Plus,
right.
an issue came up, which John referred to, about the painting of the tile. That some of
Yeah,
that, I don't know.
yeah, it's in particular, it's one of the purple shades is not, it's not staying. So we're trying, so we recently took some of the tiles out and we're talking to labs right now to kind of test to try and figure out why exactly. It's really specific colors are
Yes, yeah,
failing. So
yeah,
we're looking at that too.
Well, kudos to you both, because I mean, that's a common issue in historic preservation projects or any repair projects where you think you have one project and you get started
Yeah,
and you have more projects and you have to make kind of a split second decision.
right,
Do we stick with what we're doing? Do we, since we have other choices would be, since we have it open, can we find funding to complete more? But that's a really key piece of the puzzle, is to have a project that you can, even once you've started, you can complete it.
right.
You can come back to it. So kudos that you had a good stopping point and could come back.
Yeah,
yeah,
time is of the essence, right? It's
Yeah.
good. You want to get the pool open. So COVID helped us a little bit in that aspect, but still, and we do a lot of campus work, and so schools, have their
yeah.
annual cycles too. So you do have to really think it through, and then you can't
Yeah.
dilly dally. You have to make quick decisions.
Yeah, and how you were just mentioning the pool chemistry. I mean, that must be huge in figuring out the tile, and you need to find chemicals that, or you need to find materials and
Right.
repair materials that are going to be, can withstand that kind of.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, you know, the marble doesn't do well in acidic environments. So, um, I ironically, my first job was like pool maintenance. So I used to test pool water all the time. So I have a little bit of an idea about pool chemistry. But yeah, I mean the acid base can get out of whack very quickly in a pool.
uh,
As you can imagine, I'm not going to go.
That's just
Oh,
incredible. And
yeah,
health department concerns
right.
and keep, like you're saying, Nan, keeping things safe and the slipperiness and you have all ages too. You
Yep.
have everything from
Absolutely.
kids to seniors and all
Yeah.
these different offerings. Uh, it's truly extraordinary. All the different, like most buildings only have to withstand wind, rain. You
Right.
guys
Right.
have the gamut here.
Yeah,
So
it gets sand blasted on a monthly basis.
that's true. The sand coming in. Well, we have I wanted to get to one of the other projects. Let's
Right.
talk, let's go through the wood flooring, because I know right now the house is closed and it's going to be closed for a few weeks. And you're going to be working on an in-kind replacement of the flooring. So, John, I thought you could walk us through all the things you've been thinking about in terms of these beautiful wood floors.
Mhm.
I threw a couple more photos in here that I had taken too,
Oh,
so
good.
you can. But I did want everybody to see this in terms of how an architect goes about
Mhm.
describing. Like John, you were saying, you have not only owners and city people and docents and kind of people not involved in architecture to explain these projects to, but you also are responsible for basically producing documents that a contractor can use to build this. So
Exactly.
you cover the gamut. So I wanted everybody to see not only all the pretty pictures of the materials, but you produce working drawings
That's correct.
that get bid.
That's correct. And specifications as well. We've been fortunate. with the city to be able to get qualified contractors to work on the project. People have experience with historic buildings, but also stone conservation or wood conservation. So it's that's really helps a lot.
Yeah, so I'll set people up so they know what they're looking at. This is actually the front door. You come into the stairwell here, and what you're seeing is this extraordinary border that runs around most of these main rooms that actually you'll see in these photos. They're two tones. And then you have the field of wood. This room with its octagonal shape has the octagonal border. And then in here, the main parlor, I think you call it, has the border running around, and these really kind of unique little placemat or
floor mats.
floor mats, yeah, at the below the doors and windows. So you've captured all of that in the drawings to show all the different flooring patterns in this. And then
yeah, that's just one drawing of several.
yeah, sorry, this is a little fuzzy. This is from the website, but just showing the different rooms that all have the wood floor in it. Here's a picture of one of those floor mats. And what you're seeing here is that little that border of an alternate color running through here that really highlights and I found extraordinary. The other thing I found extraordinary is this weaving, and this occurs in both the parlor and the octagonal room, where the wood flooring comes in and then the next one overlaps. It's all quite detailed in terms of its pattern. So I'll let you talk about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so there's kind of lots of different ways to do appropriate treatment for historic buildings, and we kind of go through steps. So the first thing is, can we preserve and maintain it in place? And the reality was, with this floor, the way you maintain a floor is you sand it down and you put a new stain and sealer on top of it. And at some point, and remember, all these pieces are nailed together. So at some point, you kind of sanded it down so much that the nails are starting to show through. And that's what was happening at the floor, which is now being removed. And so that's the first thing, is to be able to do that. And if that's not possible, can you repair spots of it and keep as much as possible? And the reality was, everything had been evenly sanded down. Some areas were experiencing deterioration, like at the doors, where you'd expect. But we weren't able to do those two things. And then the next thing is, I can't repair it anymore. Can I replace it in kind? And then if that's not possible, can you replace it with an alternative that's the same visual qualities? And then the last thing to do is, I can't do any of those things, or I have bad documentation and I need to make something that's compatible or appropriate. So we're taking the replace in kind, which is kind of in the middle of all those steps. We were able to find the same, I think it's quarter stone oak, and I believe it's maple for the strips. And we worked to find the original color. You kind of look in closets and places that don't get the wear and tear. And you can see these are some of the samples of color, and you can see some of the flooring coming out, and you see the wood floor underlayment there. And do you have more? Yeah, so this is the bottom right is probably the best representation of what the floor is going to look like when the project is finished.
And that's that little alternative border there.
And then I call it the toothing of the wood.
Yeah,
is really lovely. It's just,
very well done.
Tops the corners.
And the subfloor, will you place anything between the diagonal sheathing for the subfloor and the new wood flooring?
No, because we're putting it back the way it was, and there was nothing there.
Yeah, I'm seeing there was nothing there. Interesting. Tell us about how you get the color match and how you work with, I think it's Spectra Construction is working on
Yes.
this with you.
Spectra is kind of managing it, and they have a specialty flooring subcontractor whose name, unfortunately, I can't remember, but we can get that to people if they want it. So it's really, you start with the material itself and making sure you're getting the same graining. And then once you're confident you do that, then you really do have to just start running through steps of finding the color that you want, and then going through the iterations of stain materials that are available to get that color. And you start with kind of stock samples, like you start with what I call off-the-shelf colors, and those usually don't work. So then you start blending those or putting colorants into the stain material. And then for the floor, we're going to use kind of a heavy-duty clear coat on the top, and it's going to be more of a matte gloss, not a matte finish, not so shiny, just because that's how we feel the floor was. But it'll wear a little bit better than the old floors did.
Yay.
Yep. But again, we were talking about this, and it's like, the other floor, you're just trying to cobble it and keep it going. And now you have a floor that's going to last another 100 years. So
I think that's the key, the next 100 years. Yeah.
Right.
Because, all your visitors now walk in the front door and come through that main stairwell. So there's
Yeah. I think it'll be, we've talked about this in our lead up conversations with each other about what a big move this is to have that floor replaced. And I think that, through all my conversations with John and with you, Kaitlin, and with Ruth Ann, another member of the Conservancy, I've really learned that history is change, and that what you were talking about, John, about having things be sustainable. The other day you mentioned not holding preservation in amber. I mean, this is a living building, it's a living site. We have thousands of people coming into the site, working, they tour the site with the docents, they have weddings in there, they have meetings in there. There's a lot that goes on. There's filming that happens in there.
Yep.
So it's a living building. And I think this new floor and the beautiful in-kind replacement is going to really bring more life to the guest house. And we're very excited about it. It's exciting. Once we saw how gorgeous the floor was.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I thought about when I first took the tour, and it's not really until you start a project like this that you really look at it, like in some of those photographs of just, oh, it's a wood floor. And then we started walking around and it was, wow, this is actually really interesting. The key pattern, that extra little molding that over time had faded, or that extra little stripe that had faded in a lot of places. And in a way, it's doing these projects that also reveals more for us and allows us to celebrate more of the materiality of these places.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, on materiality, because we do have a couple question coming in, so I do want to get to that. But there's more in storage, I understand. So I thought I'd share some of these photos that John pointed out, that down in the basement you have some things like window sashes. You have some leftover marble and marble fragments. And
we had stuff. There were, what did you call them, John? Historic.
We call them artifacts.
Artifacts. There were artifacts in the basement, and that was part of, once we got operating, and once we, that was one of the important things I wanted support with, that Page and Turnbull was able to help with, which is, how do we deal with this? What do we do? This is sitting in the basement. It's time we take care of it. So
John, it looks like you've gone through and you've recorded what everything is.
That's right.
And then you've carefully boxed everything up and
everything's labeled in a discrete location, so you can tie these pieces back to the record and inventory that we put together, and then we put them in box. Those are cedar line boxes. With archival storage materials that aren't going to break down. We put them on wheels so they can be moved around and stored. And then each box has a list of the contents inside of it tucked onto the side. The photos don't show that, but there's a little pocket that the lists go in, so you know what's inside of each box.
wow. And those all live still down in the basement?
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. Well, we do have one.
Oh, except for one piece, we did find a wallpaper.
That's right. That's right.
And so we actually did a little. John said, "Oh, this might make a great interpretive piece." Right. And so we did it. We got a consultant. We did some research on it. We were not able to figure out if that wallpaper fragment was actually original or came in the 50s. But we have preserved it. We've saved it a little bit. It's not on wheels, so it's upstairs in the guest house. Yeah.
That's really cool, finding all of those things.
Yeah.
Well, we do have one question I want to be sure we get to because it's from Dorothy Jewell, one of our Santa Monica Conservancy docents. She says, on Julia Morgan Day, I told our guests that the replacements of the marble around the pool were obtained from the original company in Vermont. Is this correct or incorrect? Heath was a great help in explaining what parts of the gutter had to be replaced, etc.
So the quarry in Vermont has been closed for a long time. They have taken and stored large blocks of stone, like big pieces of stone. But they're not easy to get. So we were not able to obtain in the time frame for the project the material from the Vermont quarries. So the stone that went in is from Italy. And again, we were looking to match a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm always worried about the mechanical properties. So we were hounding people for the testing values of the stone. Up at Hearst Castle, they were able to kind of do it slowly, and they were able to procure the stone in advance of the work. So it took 3 years to get the stone.
I do think that in 2000, when the pool was originally rehabilitated, I think in 2008, I think the stone did come from Vermont.
Yes, it did.
It did. So we had that original. We had the stone from the original quarry up until this last rehabilitation that finished in 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, there was a handful of pieces that were what we call attic stock spare pieces. And we used some of that for what they call patches. So there was some of the original stone that went into the project, but not all of the original stone. Yeah. And I have, if you'd like, I found like a sales brochure from the Vermont quarry.
Oh yes.
If you, I have to dig it out of our digital. It's a digital file, but I can share that with you guys if you want to show that. There's some pretty good photographs in there actually.
That would be great. Well, we're at the end. This was like so much information and so much fun. The next project, I understand there's some repairs on the bulkheads, and John, you mentioned maybe windows or shutters.
Well, the bulkheads are next in line, and some of the steps up to the porch that face the ocean, the western porch, need some tender loving care too. So some wood conservation repair is next.
Got it. And the wood flooring will be done mid-April, hopefully.
Correct.
Excellent. And then everything reopens inside. We go back to tours. So for any of the attendees that are interested in taking a tour when it reopens, you'll be posting the new open dates on the Annenberg website as soon as
we'll put it out on social media. We'll put it out in our monthly newsletter. We'll put it out on the website. You can always call us too.
Great. Well, this has been fantastic. I've enjoyed talking with you both. It's an extraordinary place that you manage, and John, extraordinary work you've been doing, and your team. I know you have a whole team at Page Turnbull
Yes.
too.
I have a whole team here too.
And I
do
did
extraordinary work.
as does the city. So I did want to say thank
that's
you
true.
to Yukiko Takahashi, Brian Ochoa, the CIP project manager, and to Stephanie Reich, design and historic preservation planner. Also goes along with the team to keep this place alive. So
yeah, I'd like to say thanks to Lindsay Miller and Alice Baker, did some of the original work, and then Heather Mangrum and Jesus Barba, otherwise known as Chewy, who are our current team.
well, thank you both so much, and look forward to seeing the project. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you both.